8 people, desperate for money, accidentally end up on a reality show where they get a lot of money just for being here, but have to do terrible things to keep the show going. A young man named Jin-soo stands on the edge of a bridge and prepares to jump. Shortly before, he had borrowed 900 million won to give to his friend who promised to invest and grow the money, but, as expected, the man disappeared as soon as he received the bank transfer. Jin-soo tried to pay off the debt by working multiple jobs, but the money wasn't enough to even cover the interest. Tired of eating expired food and running from debt collectors, Jin-soo sees no way out of this nightmare than to jump. But at the last minute, he receives a notification on his phone. Someone communicates with him by bank transfers for 1 million won and offers to buy the time he wanted to throw away. The mysterious stranger informs him that he can get even more and offers to get into a limo. Without much thought, Jin-soo gets inside and soon arrives at a theater building. Once inside, he finds a table with numbered cards and a welcome letter with rules. He is offered to play in the 8 show, where he will be paid for his time. He will be provided with food and accommodation, and with each passing day, the final prize will grow. However, if any of the players dies or time runs out, the show will immediately end. If he agrees, he should choose one of the cards and walk behind the curtain. Otherwise, he can take the 20 millions and leave. At first, Jin-soo plans to leave with the 20 millions, but realizing it won't help him with his massive debt, he picks card number 3 and steps inside. Behind the curtain, he finds a huge room and a timer counting down 24 hours. Suddenly, the doors slam shut behind him, leaving no way back. Jin-soo notices a staircase leading to 8 floors and realizes he should go to the 3rd floor. Unlocking the door with his card, he enters a room with many cameras. Soon a chute door opens, inside which is his uniform and a set of rules. Players should leave all their belongings and change into their uniforms. The current prize is shown on the scoreboard above. They can make purchases through the intercom at a special rate. Food and water are free and cannot be purchased. Items to be used outside the room can be purchased on the square. It is forbidden to leave your room between midnight and 8, as well as to take items purchased in the room outside of it and block the cameras. Violation of these rules will result in the loss of half of the prize money. Barely having time to change before the show starts, Jin-soo notices that a number of 30,000 has appeared on the scoreboard, which doubles a minute later, and he realizes that he can make 43 million in a day. Overjoyed by the money, he decides to use the intercom to buy a blanket, but the price tag is 100 times higher than usual. Shocked by such prices, Jin-soo decides to hold off on the expensive purchases for now, ordering a stack of old newspapers to make a bed and a plastic bottle to relieve himself. After waking up in the morning, Jin-soo goes down to the square where he meets the other players and notices that the time has increased to 35 hours. Number 1 suggests introducing themselves, but 2 interrupts, saying it makes no sense and it's much easier to call each other by their floor numbers. The group explores the square and soon realizes that everything here is made of plastic. Number 7 speculates that there are hidden rules that made the timer increase, and they should find them out as soon as possible. Meanwhile, 6 ignores everyone and steps out of the crowd to buy a pack of cigarettes, which reduces the time by 2 minutes. After doing the math, they understand that it's much more profitable to buy things here because a pack of cigarettes costing 5,000 won only reduced the time by 2 minutes, whereas in the room it would have cost them 500,000. After a while, everyone gets really hungry and asks where their promised food is, to which 8 replies that she has already eaten. The chute in her room delivered 12 lunchboxes and 12 bottles of water. She tasted a little bit of each of them and used the water to wash herself. The others ask why she didn't share, to which she replies that they are not allowed to take the items out of the room. Number 7 suggests a theory that their rooms are most likely connected through the chute, and food can be sent to the lower floors through it. Together, they head to the 8th floor to test this assumption. Once inside, they are shocked by the size of 8's room, which is also filled with a lot of furniture she bought, but her balance is still huge because she earns 340,000 won per minute. The group starts finding out how much each person is paid per minute, and number 1 admits he only gets 10,001. Number 7 does the math and realizes that their payments follow the Fibonacci sequence, where the next floor's earnings are the sum of the earnings of the 2 previous floors. In addition to the difference in money, room sizes also vary, getting smaller and smaller with each floor. Everyone is shocked by such injustice, except for 8, who enjoys seeing them consumed by envy. 7 asks them not to argue because regardless of whether they earn 10 or 340,000 per minute, the amounts are still huge, and their task is to stay here as long as possible. A little while later, they agree on how to distribute the food. They will each take 1 portion and send the rest downstairs. The 4 remaining lunch boxes they can eat together on the first floor, thus building trust between them. After lunch, they are shocked to discover that there are only 15 minutes left on the timer, as number 8 has bought herself a bunch of clothes for their time. The second floor is about to beat the crap out of her for this act, but 8 informs them that the time can always be extended by running up the stairs. With less than 10 minutes left on the timer, they head to the stairs without time to test this theory. Everyone runs like hell, but the timer soon approaches 0, after which 24 hours appears again on the timer. The next day, they head to the stairs to earn more time. The more they run, the hungrier they become, and soon they find that they can no longer eat their fill. 6 suggests splitting into 2 teams, odds and evens. They will run every other day, and the team that runs today will get a double portion. Everyone agrees to such conditions, except number 2, who does not want to be in the same team with 8, so she swaps with number 1. After a few days of this division of labor, number 1 begins to slow down a lot because of his sore leg. 6 extends a hand to help him but grips it tightly, calling him a burden. Number 2 steps in to defend him and says that she will take his place today. After a few days, things don't get any better and number 2 is going to the stairs again, but this time Jin-soo takes the initiative to help him. The next day, Jin-soo discovers that instead of food, a bunch of bags of poop have arrived. It turns out that the first floor offered to use his room as a waste storage, since he couldn't be helpful running up and down the stairs. Everyone appreciates this deed, and soon the relationships within the group start to improve, but due to the stench on the first floor, it becomes impossible to have meals there. After a while, 7 notices that the timer is behaving strangely. They are running just as much, but the time keeps decreasing. Suddenly, the time increases by 10 minutes, even though no one is on the stairs. Soon, number 8 gets thoroughly bored of running and announces that she's not going to do it anymore. Number 2 tries to make her work, but she responds that only the lower floors should work, because they use their shared time to buy stuff since they don't want to waste their own money. Time continues to decrease, so the resting group joins in the running, but by the end of the day, they find that the time has only gotten shorter. When everyone stops, the timer increases by 10 minutes again, and they all decide it's just a glitch in the system and that they'll gain a lot of time by the morning. But when they wake up, they find that there are only 30 minutes left on the timer, so everyone starts running like hell, but number 4 falls to the floor. Number 5 quickly determines that it's an epileptic seizure and that she needs medication immediately to avoid brain damage. They drag 4 to the intercom, but 6 stops them, not wanting to waste their remaining time on this. A fight breaks out, and they manage to collectively subdue number 6, while Jin-soo orders the medication through the intercom. Seeing all this, 8 starts laughing hysterically as their time increases by 40 hours. It turns out that time isn't added by running up and down the stairs, but by entertaining their viewers. The group discusses all this and concludes that the viewers were initially interested in them running back and forth on the stairs like hamsters, but quickly grew bored, so they need to come up with something new. The next day, Jin-soo is trying to make some time with the mukbang, when at that moment, 7 comes to visit him. During their conversation, 7 expresses his suspicion that after a while, the others will start crossing the line to please the viewers' growing appetites, so they should try to stop it. Gathered in the square, the players discuss how they can earn some time. They come up with ideas ranging from a love drama to a knockout tournament, but in the end, they all agree that they should start with a talent show. 7 is volunteered to perform at the beginning and impresses everyone with his nose flute skills, which earns them 20 hours. They all have until tomorrow to think about their performance, but before that, they must decide how long the show will last. Since the upper floors are paid much more and can leave earlier, everyone agrees that number 1 should decide, and he says he won't leave without 1 billion, which equals 75 days in this show. The next day, while everyone is buying props for the talent show, Jin-soo can't find peace as he's completely talentless. 5's sweet song earns them 10 hours. Number 6 surprises everyone with his combat skills, earning 15 hours, but 2 shows an even more impressive performance, earning 17. Next up is 4th floor with her horrible yodeling, which only earns 1 hour and 50 minutes. Jin-soo decides not to stall with his embarrassment and starts dancing, earning only 18 minutes. Number 1 shows an excellent mime show, finishing with a magic trick that earns 30 hours. Last in line is 8, who asks 7th to help her, as she's about to give a not-so-common performance. He refuses, and she takes on 6 as her assistant, earning 69 hours. The next day, number 1 asks if he should continue to take waste bags, as they no longer needs to run and his room is running out of space, plus it's starting to stink a lot. They come to the conclusion that it is not right to make number 1 do it anymore, so they should vote whose room will be the new waste storage and the shared toilet. Soon, a backwards election race begins, where everyone tries to induce the others to vote for the most unworthy in their opinion. In the end, the favorites for the public restroom role are the 3rd floor, as the one that earned the least time, and the 8th floor because of her antics. The day of the anonymous vote arrives, and the 8th floor is chosen as the new waste room, but when she is asked to hand over her key card to go to the restroom, she just refuses. Everyone thinks that sooner or later, 8 will give in and let them into her room, but soon a message from her arrives, stating that they are gravely mistaken. While everyone is suffering from hunger and thirst, 8 locks herself in the room and does not go out, as she has everything she needs to live. Soon, 8 comes down with food and water, and they all have a friendly meal in the square, but it all turns out to be just a hallucination of number 5. 2 decides to spend all the remaining time since this money will be useless if they starve here to death, but number 1 begs her not to do it. Seeing their suffering, Jin-soo volunteers to become a poopman since he earned the least amount of time in the talent show. 4 supports his initiative and says she'll help him by splitting the waste in half since she's earned a not much more than Jin-soo. Together, they head over to 8th floor to apologize, but 7 stops them and asks to speak to her one-on-one. On behalf of everyone, he apologizes to her, and she forgives them for a small fee in the form of clothes bought with the time earned by their starvation. That day, everyone finally had a proper meal, and soon, Jin-soo received a huge pile of trash, despite number 1, 2, and 7 deciding to keep theirs. Jin-soo doesn't understand why there's so much of it, as if 4 isn't taking half of it, which ends up being true. The next day, an authoritarian regime is established in their society, with 8 at the head. She says that from now on, they will play king to earn time. Everyone draws balls with numbers, and whoever gets the king's ball assigns a task to 2 others, which they must complete. It starts with innocent hand-holding and kisses, but when 8 becomes the king, she orders numbers 2 and 6 to fight. Having better fighting skills, 2 wins at first, but almost breaks her arm, damaged earlier in the talent show. Thanks to this, 6 gains the upper hand and severely beats number 2, thus earning 50 hours. Everyone agrees that this is too much, so to avoid such situations, they set a new rule. From now on, if one of the players doesn't want to complete a task, they can refuse, but instead, they will get tased. The next day, 8 becomes the king again and orders Jin-soo to grope number 5. Jin-soo doesn't want to offend her, so reluctantly agrees to an electric shock that causes him to wet himself, thus earning 50 hours. The next time 4 becomes king, ordering number 2 and 6 to guess which side the coin will fall, and whoever doesn't guess gets tased. 2 fails and suffers the same fate as Jin-soo, thus earning 2 extra days. 8 once again becomes king and orders second and third floor to slap each other until one of them gives up and gets tased. Despite Jin-soo was determined to win at the beginning, he gives up after the first slap from number 2. In the evening, number 1 calls 3 and 2 to his room to inform them that upper floors are cheating. 4 changes the side of the coin right in her hands, but that's not all. They hurry to share this with the 7, who a little later catches 4 as she is coating the king ball with acetone, making it slightly sticky. 7 tells her that the lower floors have begun to suspect them of cheating, so they should play fair. The next day, number 1 becomes king and orders 7 and 8 to play the same game with the coin flip and the electric shock, but this time he asks to catch the coin with the back of her hand, causing 8 to lose. Everyone is eagerly awaiting a fair punishment, but at that moment, 6 knocks 7 down and tases him. A little later, 7 wakes up on the 8th floor, where 6, having already bought himself a new taser, says that he understands why he helped the lower floors to even the odds, but he should not resist the natural course of things, because those on top must control those below. Soon, number 6 breaks the intercoms in their rooms and puts a grate on the one in the square to prevent them from buying weapons. The lower floors discuss recent events, and Jin-soo asserts that number 7 would never betray them. However, soon the upper floors come down to them, and 7 says that from now on, the lower floors will have to earn 24 hours a day, or they won't get any food. For the completed quota, they will be given coins, which can be exchanged for 1 portion of food or a bottle of water. Number 2 tries to protest, but 6 tases her and kicks number 1, showing that from now on, they are slaves. Sometime later, 7 says that they will have to play games. Each game has only 1 winner, and the rest will be punished. The first game is hide and seek. Each player must choose 1 part of their body to tie up, and then they must hide within the given time. The loser is the one who gets hit by 6. The countdown begins, and after 10 seconds, he goes on a search. Numbers 1 and 5 are eliminated very quickly, after which 6 starts beating up number 2, but 7 stops him as the game is over. For winning hide and seek, Jin-soo is given a bat and blindfolded, while the losers play the role of human piñatas. As a result, number 1 gets hit with a bat, and 7 announces a new rule. For each game, they will be given 9 coins, and everyone must write down how many they will take. However, they are not allowed to discuss it among themselves, and if the total exceeds 9, no one will get anything. Everyone decides not to risk it and writes down 2 coins each, but Jin-soo outsmarts himself and writes down only 1. The next day, they play 20 questions, where they have to guess a word or phrase within a limited number of questions. Everyone quickly realizes that the answer is the 20-question game itself, but they don't answer, waiting for number 2 to figure it out so she can get the bat and fight back. However, she is too disoriented to understand where the enemy is. About a week goes by like this, when Jin-soo notices a note with a plan of action slipped to him by number 1. When he gives the sign, they should go down to his room through the chute and ambush the upper floors. After a while, 7 quietly says Jin-soo that it makes a sound, and he starts racking his brain trying to figure out what those words mean. Soon he notices that the chute is making sounds, which means that 7 has figured out their plan and is probably on their side since he hasn't told the others. The next morning, number 1 starts yelling for help, and upper floors go downstairs, where an ambush awaits them. A fight breaks out between them, during which 6 points a teaser at them, but it doesn't work, because 7 took the batteries out of it earlier. Their revolution succeeds, and they tie up everyone but 7. They initially want revenge for what they've been through, but they're too kind to hurt their tormentors. Upper floors are taken to their rooms, but now everyone has access to them. Jin-soo offers to spend all of 8's money in retaliation, but number 2 stops him, saying number 8 also needs it. Soon food arrives in the room, and they finally eat as much as they want in a long time. After asking 8's permission, they use her money to buy a recipe and equipment for making moonshine. After eating their fill and drank some alcohol, they discuss whether it's time for them to finish the show. They have already crossed the line, and it is unlikely that they will be given more time for something less extreme. Number 1 wants to make $1 billion, but keeping his humanity is more important to him, so he agrees to end the show as soon as time runs out, and Number 2 will share her prize money with him, since he needs so much. The days become routine, and soon there are only 9 hours left on the timer. They say goodbye to each other, expecting the show will end tomorrow, but in the morning they see that the time has been increased by 27 hours. Not understanding what's happening, they begin examining the prisoners to understand why time has been added, but find nothing. Number 2 suspects that someone among them doesn't want to finish the show and somehow adds time. This is soon confirmed when they discover that someone has pulled out a tooth from Number 4. Upon re-examining the captives, they realize the show didn't end last time because someone pulled out all of Number 6's toenails. Later that night, 2 decides to lock everyone in their rooms to end the show. Only Number 5 remains free to care for the prisoners. Seeing their suffering, her mental health deteriorates, and she begins to see hallucinations of Number 4 and 8, who inform her that 2 has decided to let them go. She heads to the 6th floor and informs him of this news. 6 decides to play along with her and tricks her into releasing him, but once he gains his freedom, he immediately takes 5 by force. Thus, their revolution comes to an end, and everything returns to how it was before. 6 buys a revolver and bullets to find out who ripped out his toenails. No one confesses, so he decides to play Russian roulette with them to find out. 2 is lucky to avoid the bullet, but 7 is less fortunate and gets shot in the leg. 6 continues and points a gun at Number 1's healthy leg when Jin-Soo says he knows how to figure out his tormentor. There are cameras everywhere, so it's likely possible to buy the recordings from that day. 6 and 8 head upstairs where for 100 million won, they get a video where Number 1 pulling out his nails and giving him some lemonade. At this time, Number 1 confesses everything, saying that he wanted to take revenge on him and thus continue the show since he didn't earn enough. Boiling with rage, 6 is about to end the show by killing Number 1, but 8 stops him by shooting him with a teaser, and he falls down the stairs, breaking his spine. 8 says the show must go on, so she ties up all the rebels and locks them in their rooms, watching their suffering through the purchased surveillance footage. Soon, she decides that's not enough, and sets up equipment to torture them with sleep deprivation in order to earn time. The prisoners are kept from dying by maintaining their physical condition, while 8 paints pictures inspired by their suffering. When Number 4 once again comes to the 1st floor to feed the prisoner, he tells her that she can earn much more if she helps them. It turns out that at the very beginning, Number 1 discovered that they could swap rooms, but it costs 1 billion won to do so. In addition to a sore leg, his daughter has serious health problems, and he doesn't have the money for her treatment. Number 1 was desperate and took out an insurance policy on himself to be hit by a car, but the same white limo stopped in front of him. It was because of his daughter that he wanted to earn 1 billion won and switch rooms with 8 to provide his family with a carefree life. Number 1 offers her the first choice of room for helping with the escape, and she agrees as she is terribly afraid of 8, who is already considering shooting the others to end the show. She informs the others of this plan, but one problem appears. 4 must always accompany 8, as she is in fact her personal servant and cannot unleash them. They have a small window of time during the day when 8 plays golf in the square and doesn't watch the cameras, so 4 needs to convince Number 5 to help them. When the moment is right, she interrupts another of 5's hallucination sessions and asks to talk in her room. There, 4 convinces her to help them by telling her how everyone is suffering, and she agrees, but she has one condition. D-Day arrives, and while 4 distracts 8, Number 5 sneaks into the captives' rooms and frees them, but their luck runs out as 8's new doggy notices all this. 8 finds them in one of the rooms and points a gun at them, but the situation is saved by 4, who hits her with a golf club. This nightmare finally ends, with 6 unable to move due to a broken spine and 8 lying unconscious. Everyone cries and hugs when at that moment 5 announces that she should be rewarded for her help. She heads to 6th floor and buys a scalpel, after which she takes away his toys. After avenging what he did to her, she returns to the square to discuss swapping rooms. 4 swaps with 8 and 1 with 6. The others are happy with what they have. They head to the first floor, where number 1 orders a room change for 1 billion, but he only receives a sheet with the real prices. 8th floor costs 340 billions, which means their fates were predetermined from the beginning. Everyone is shocked by this turn of events, but most of all number 1, who spent all his money on this piece of paper. Number 2 offers to split their money with him and finally leave this cursed place, but he raises the gun and orders nobody to move. After tying everyone up and putting them in chairs, number 1 stretches a rope between the walls to perform his circus show. He skillfully balances on the rope, then starts jumping on it. Just like Icarus, he flies all the way to the ceiling, where he grabs onto a spotlight that serves as their man-made sun. The spotlight breaks off, and he falls down, where a fire has already started. The others untie themselves and try to help number 1, but he is in critical condition and won't survive without medical attention. Jin-soo tries to spend all the remaining time to end the show, but they get 1,000 hours added on. As he slowly dies, Jin-soo takes a revolver and starts destroying the cameras. Only after the audience lose the last camera, the doors open, but by then, number 1 is no longer breathing.
Congratulations. The prize money will be wired to your bank account.
After 2.5 months, Jin-soo is on the verge of despair and can't forget the traumatic events he experienced earlier. Despite having his winnings halved because he destroyed cameras, he decides to spend it on banners inviting others to the funeral of number 1, since he doesn't know their names. After some time, number 2, 4, and 5 respond to the invitation, and Jin-soo tells them that he found number 1's family. They think that he is working abroad because a man of the same description as 7, who introduced himself as his colleague, gave them a passbook with enough money for a lifetime. Their conversation is interrupted by a delivery man who brings a huge wreath from 6. Soon, they learn that number 8 is a performance artist. After the show ended, she destroyed an art gallery with a backhoe, leaving a sign there saying, "This is not art," and her entire winnings were spent on compensation. Plus, she was locked up in jail. The end.